Black Swan didn't arrive like other films. It slithered into theaters disguised as art, then tightened around the audience's throat until they couldn't look away. What looked like a ballet thriller was actually a psychological dissection, identity fractured one mirror at a time. Behind every frame lived decisions so precise they felt like surgery, choices that turned perfection into poison before the final curtain ever fell. These are 20 hidden details you completely missed in Black Swan. Number 1. The opening dream reveals the entire movie. The film begins inside Nina's mind, and it never truly leaves. She dances both the white swan and the black swan in the opening dream sequence, performing dual roles before the story officially starts. Director Darren Aronofsky shows you immediately that this isn't a transformation story, it's a collapse. Nina already contains both swans, the innocent and the seductive, the controlled and the wild. Everything that follows is just Nina discovering what she already knew in her sleep. Aronofsky deliberately structured the opening as a complete miniature version of the finale. Same movements, same music cues, same duality. He wanted audiences to feel the ending before they understood it. She was always both swans. She just refused to admit it until the stage forced her hand. Number 2. Mirrors appear more than 150 times. The film is built from reflections. Mirrors dominate every frame, far beyond what any normal visual language requires. Dance studios, bathrooms, subway windows, even Nina's bedroom is wrapped in reflective surfaces. Production designer Thérèse Dupré said the mirror count wasn't accidental, it was architectural. The entire world had to feel like it was watching Nina, reflecting her back at herself until she couldn't tell which version was real. And if you look closely, many reflections lag behind Nina's movements by a fraction of a second. Cinematographer Matthew Libatique worked with visual effects teams to create microsecond delays in certain mirror shots, making Nina's reflection feel like it was thinking independently. Your brain registers something wrong before you can name it. They're Nina's enemies, splitting her into pieces she can't reassemble. Number 3. Nina is almost never shown alone. Even when she appears isolated, reflections, shadows, or doubles share the frame. Aronofsky rarely allows a clean, unobstructed shot of Nina by herself. There's always something else in the composition. A mirror, a silhouette, a blurred figure in the background. The film visually insists she is never singular, never whole, never just one person. Editor Andrew Weisblum said they deliberately avoided traditional solo close-ups that most films use to establish character interiority. Instead, every shot of Nina includes fragmentation. The framing itself becomes a psychological diagnosis. Nina doesn't just feel divided, she is divided, and by refusing to let her exist cleanly in the frame, the film traps her in visual multiplicity. She can't escape herself because there are too many versions competing for the same space. Number 4. The color palette tracks. Nina's psychological state. Early scenes are washed in whites, creams, and pale pinks. Nina's world is sterile, controlled, almost clinical, but as she unravels, blacks, reds, and harsh contrasts invade the frame. The transformation isn't sudden, it's gradual, creeping into the edges of scenes before dominating them entirely. Costume designer Amy Westcott and Libatique coordinated the color shifts across wardrobe, lighting, and set design. Nina's clothing darkens, her apartment dims, even her skin tone shifts under different lighting schemes as the film progresses. By the finale, the palette collapses into pure extremes, just white innocence and black corruption battling for dominance in every shot. And by the time the reds flood the screen during the final performance, you know Nina's already lost. The palette tells you she's dying before the wound ever appears. Number 5. Lily is framed as Nina's mirror, not her rival. Lily is often shot entering from the opposite side of the frame Nina occupies. They share symmetrical blocking, lighting, and posture. When Nina leans left, Lily leans right. When Nina steps forward, Lily steps back. The camera treats them as two halves of the same person, not as competitors. Aronofsky said Lily represents everything Nina suppresses: spontaneity, intimacy, freedom, and the film reinforces that symbolism visually by making them literal reflections of each other. Mila Kunis and Natalie Portman rehearsed their scenes with choreography that emphasized mirrored movement, creating an unsettling symmetry that registers subconsciously. It's projection, Nina fighting an externalized version of herself because she can't reconcile the duality internally. She's Nina's suppressed self given form, walking, breathing, and demanding acknowledgement. Number 6. Thomas is never lit like a mentor. Every scene with Thomas uses shadows, side lighting, or partial darkness. He exists visually as temptation and danger, not guidance. The film tells you not to trust him long before the plot confirms it. Vincent Cassel's face is often half hidden, obscured by shadow or positioned against backlight that renders him more silhouette than person. Libatique said the lighting was deliberate. Thomas isn't there to teach, he's there to consume, and the cinematography reflects that predatory energy in every frame. Thomas gets none of that. He's always lurking, always half present, always visually coded as a threat, and by the time Nina Nina realizes what he is, the audience has already been watching a monster disguised as authority. Number 7. Nina rarely blinks in early scenes. In the first act, Nina's blinking is noticeably infrequent. Her eyes stay wide, fixed, almost unnaturally open. Natalie Portman was directed to keep her gaze steady and unbroken to convey hyper-control. Blinking is involuntary, human, a small surrender to biology. And Nina refuses even that. She's holding herself together through sheer willpower, denying her body's natural rhythms in pursuit of perfection. But as Nina deteriorates, her blinking becomes rapid and erratic, uncontrolled. Her eyes can't stay still anymore. The physiological breakdown mirrors the psychological one. Portman tracked her blink rate across scenes, deliberately shifting from rigid control to chaotic reflexiveness as the story progressed. But subconsciously, you feel Nina losing her grip, control breaking down one involuntary movement at a time. Number 8. The apartment is designed like a child's prison. Nina's bedroom is pastel, cramped, and frozen in adolescence. Stuffed animals line the shelves. Pink textures dominate the walls. The bed is small, almost juvenile. Everything about the space screams childhood, clashing violently with Nina's adult body. Production designer Thérèse Dupré said the apartment was meant to feel suffocating, a physical manifestation of arrested development. Nina's mother has trapped her in perpetual girlhood, refusing to let her grow, mature, or claim agency. And the environment enforces that stunting. It's a cage, a space designed to infantilize and control. Barbara Hershey, who plays Erica, worked with Dupré to ensure every detail felt oppressive. The stuffed animals aren't comforting, they're surveillance. Nina's environment prevents maturity before she ever steps on stage. The apartment kills her before the performance does. Number 9. Natalie Portman was directed to erase grace. Aronofsky asked Portman to unlearn fluid movement early on. Her stiffness is intentional. The white swan is restraint incarnate. Every gesture is controlled, measured, calculated. There's no spontaneity, no organic flow, just rigid precision. Portman trained for over a year with professional ballet dancers, but Aronofsky didn't want perfection. He wanted tension. He wanted the audience to see the effort, feel the strain, recognize that Nina's body is a weapon she's turning against herself. Choreographer Benjamin Millipede worked with Portman to build movements that look technically flawless, but emotionally constipated. The black swan doesn't perform, it erupts. And the contrast between Nina's rigid white swan and her explosive black swan is entirely physical, a transformation told through the body before the mind ever catches up. Number 10. The practice studio floor is intentionally uneven. The ballet studio floors were subtly altered to feel unstable. Portman reported constantly adjusting her balance during rehearsals and filming. The discomfort wasn't accidental. Aronofsky wanted Nina off balance, physically and psychologically. The uneven surface forced Portman to compensate, creating micro adjustments in her posture and movement that registered as tension on camera. Production teams shaved millimeters off certain floor sections, installed slight inclines in others, and ensured no surface felt entirely trustworthy. The effect is invisible to viewers but visceral to performers. Nina is never on solid ground. Every step requires calculation, every turn risks collapse, and the floor mirrors the psychological reality of her life. Nothing is stable, nothing is safe. Physical discomfort feeds psychological tension until the two become indistinguishable. Number 11. The Black Swan has no stable POV. Once Nina embraces the role, camera perspective becomes inconsistent. Angles shift mid-movement. The frame tilts without warning. What should be objective shots suddenly feel subjective, and vice versa. Reality no longer belongs to her. Editor Weisblum said the destabilization was intentional. The film stops obeying spatial logic because Nina's mind no longer does. Shots that should match don't. Eye lines become unreliable. The 180-degree rule gets violated repeatedly. Traditional continuity editing depends on maintaining spatial relationships so the audience always knows where they are. But Black Swan abandons that contract. You're inside Nina's fracturing perception, and perception doesn't follow rules. The camera becomes untrustworthy because Nina's reality is untrustworthy, and by breaking fundamental filmmaking conventions, Aronofsky traps the audience in the same disorientation Nina experiences. Number 12. The club scene is intentionally disorienting. The lighting pulses inconsistently, breaking spatial logic. Cuts are slightly mistimed with the music. The rhythm feels wrong, jarring, like the film itself is having a seizure. This is the first moment Nina fully loses perceptual stability. Everything before this has been building toward fragmentation, but in the club, the collapse accelerates. Libatique used strobe effects, colored gels, and handheld camera work to destroy any sense of grounded space. The scene doesn't follow Nina, it drowns her. Sound designer Craig Hennigan layered audio inconsistencies into the mix, creating moments where dialogue and music don't sync properly. Your brain registers the discord subconsciously, adding to the discomfort without you understanding why. The moment Nina stops controlling her experience and surrenders to chaos, and the filmmaking mirrors that surrender by abandoning coherence entirely. Number 13. The mother is framed as a failed double. Erica Sayers is a former dancer. She gave up her career for motherhood, and she's never forgiven herself or Nina for that sacrifice. She lives vicariously through her daughter, demanding perfection she never achieved herself, and the film frames her as Nina's cautionary tale, a ghost of futures unlived. Hershey and Portman share similar blocking and framing throughout the film. They're often shot in mirrors together, their faces overlapping, becoming indistinguishable. Aronofsky positions Erica as Nina's inevitable destination if she doesn't break free, a woman consumed by regret, clinging to youth through her child, frozen in bitterness. She's a warning. Her reflected presence tells Nina exactly what happens if she survives. She becomes Erica, bitter, obsessed, alone. The failure to transform isn't death, it's becoming your mother. Number 14. The swan feathers appear before the breakdown. Tiny feather textures appear in shadows and costumes early on. They're barely noticeable unless paused. Small details in the background, a texture on Nina's skin, a shadow pattern on the wall. Aronofsky and his team planted visual Easter eggs throughout the first 2 acts, subtle hints that the transformation was already happening. The feathers aren't sudden, they're gradual. Visual effects supervisor Dan Schrecker worked with the team to integrate micro-transformations into scenes long before the hallucinatory finale. Most viewers never consciously notice them, but subconsciously the imagery accumulates. By the time Nina sprouts full wings during the Black Swan performance, your brain has been primed. The transformation doesn't shock because it's been building invisibly for 90 minutes. The feathers were always there, you just weren't looking closely enough. Number 15. Mirrors are removed during moments of clarity. In rare scenes where Nina feels calm, mirrors are absent. The film briefly allows her to exist without fragmentation. These moments are few. A conversation with Thomas, a quiet subway ride, brief interludes where the reflections disappear and Nina gets to be singular. Deprez said the removal was intentional. The film needed breathing room. Moments where Nina wasn't constantly doubled, but those moments never last long. The mirrors always return, the fragmentation always resumes, and the contrast makes their absence feel almost cruel. A brief taste of wholeness before the splitting begins again. The mirrors aren't just surveillance, they're Nina's natural state, and their temporary removal only highlights how rare and fleeting peace is in her world. Number 16. The final performance is shot almost clean. The finale removes shaky camera and distortion. For the first time, Nina feels complete. Even as she destroys herself, the cinematography stabilizes. Smooth tracking shots, elegant camera movements, classical framing. Libatique said the shift was deliberate. The entire film has been building toward this moment, and when it finally arrives, chaos becomes clarity. Nina stops fighting, she stops resisting, and the camera rewards her surrender with grace. The performance is shot like a traditional ballet film, beautiful and composed, because Nina has finally achieved what she wanted. She's perfect, the cost is irrelevant. Clarity arrives only at the point of no return, and the visual serenity of the finale is the film's cruelest joke. Nina gets exactly what she wanted, and it kills her. Number 17. Nina walks differently as each swan. As the white swan, her steps are careful and centered, weight balanced, movement contained. Every step is deliberate, controlled, designed not to attract attention. But as the black swan, weight shifts outward and forward. Her walk becomes aggressive, confident, seductive. The transformation is choreographed down to foot placement. Benjamin Millepied worked with Portman to create distinct physical languages for each role. The white swan pulls inward, the black swan explodes outward, and the shift isn't just performance, it's physiological. Portman's entire posture changes, her center of gravity relocates, her gait transforms. The two swans don't just think differently, they inhabit the body differently, and by making the transformation physical first, the film grounds Nina's psychological collapse in something tangible and undeniable. Number 18. The audience applause is artificially extended. The applause during the final performance was layered and prolonged in post-production. It swells unnaturally, overwhelming the soundtrack. Sound designer Craig Hennigan said the extension was deliberate. Perfection becomes deafening, not joyful. The applause isn't validation, it's suffocation. It drowns Nina instead of celebrating her. The sound mixing prioritizes the clapping over dialogue, over music, over Nina's own breathing. The audience becomes a wall of noise, faceless and consuming, and the longer it goes, the more oppressive it feels. What should be Nina's triumph becomes her burial. The applause doesn't lift her up, it pushes her under, and by artificially extending it beyond natural duration, the film turns celebration into violence. The audience isn't applauding Nina, they're devouring devouring her. Number 19, the ending scene finishes the film's loop. The final performance mirrors the opening dream sequence almost beat for beat. The same movements, the same music cues, the same framing. Aronofsky closes the circle, proving the film was always a loop. Nina isn't transforming, she's repeating. The ending doesn't resolve, it returns. Everything she experienced was a journey back to where she started, except now it's real instead of imagined. The dream becomes reality, the prophecy fulfills itself, and the audience realizes they've been watching a closed system. Nina was always going to end here. The film just needed 108 minutes to show her the path. The loop isn't tragic, it's inevitable. The ending was written in the beginning, you just didn't know you were watching it. Number 20, the film ends without resolving reality. You're never told what truly happened. Did Nina really sprout wings? Did she actually hurt herself? Was Lily ever real? The film refuses to answer. Ambiguity is the point. Certainty would break the spell. Aronofsky deliberately leaves the final moments open to interpretation. Some viewers believe Nina dies. Others think she hallucinates her own death. Still others argue the entire film is a psychotic break with no objective reality whatsoever. It gives you just enough evidence to construct any theory you want, but never enough to confirm it. The film doesn't want you to solve it. It wants you to stay inside Nina's fractured mind, unable to distinguish real from imagined, truth from delusion. And that's exactly what Aronofsky intended. Black Swan may look like a story about ambition, but it's really about identity erosion frame by frame. Every mirror, sound, and movement was engineered to trap Nina and the audience inside her mind. The film we remember as a psychological thriller was built on decisions most viewers never noticed. Small choices that turned ballet into horror. Which hidden detail did you miss? And what movie should we unravel next? Because sometimes the truth in cinema isn't wrapped in standing ovations, it's hidden in the mirrors.